My name is Rafael Escalante, and I'll be presenting to you guys about the religion of Roman Catholicism. And among this presentation, I'll be covering three main topics, which will be the origins of Roman Catholicism, the rituals/traditions of Roman Catholicism, and lastly, the influence of this religion. And according to LifeScience.com, Catholics they comprise 50% of all Christians and 60% of the world's population. So, starting off with history, the history/background of this religion, I got my information from an article titled Religion Library Roman Catholicism by Patheos. And Roman Catholics, they make up 1.1 billion of the world's population around all over the world. And this religion traces back to Jesus of Nazareth, who was a preacher in the city of Jerusalem during a time period where Rome occupied the city. And the members of this religion, they consisted of various groups of churches which were unified, and all of these churches were run by an individual which was known as a bishop. And once Jesus died and he resurrected, many of these bishops they spread it across the world to show other individuals from other parts of the world the religion and the teachings of the church. And the Vatican City, it is believed to be built on the grave of Peter, specifically the St. Peter's Basilica. And the Pope is considered to be Peter's successor. And this religion, they started off as a persecuted group during Roman times and during the upbringing of the Roman Empire. And it lasted around 300 years for this religion to be accepted in the Roman Empire, which was mainly because of the Emperor Constantine's conversion to this religion. And once the Roman Empire fell, the church it had many influence in the Western world, which also influenced obviously the cultures and the traditions and the arts of the Western world. And today, this religion is very, very popular in Africa, South America, and Asia. So now moving on to traditions/rituals of this tradition, of this religion, I mean. I got my information from an article titled Understanding Roman Catholicism by Econdolence. And one belief of the Roman Catholics is that the Pope is the supremacy of the church, and and they also believe in the seven commandments. I mean, sacraments. And the sacraments, they were basically made to keep temptation out of the minds of the followers of this religion, and to also hopefully lead them to a good and holy life according to the church. And they also believe that people went to heaven if they followed the rules and they accepted the church's teachings. And on the contrast, if people rejected the teachings of the church, they were condemned to a place of eternal suffering and pain, which is also known as hell. And they also believed in the purgatory, which was an area which people who are destined to go to heaven, they go and they confess their sins and they cleanse themselves from their sins. Another idea of the church and Roman Catholics is that every individual has a soul, and that once the individual dies, their soul will move out of the body. And this religion is also built as a way to bring comfort to people who have unfortunately lost loved ones, but also helping them to get over the death and accept that death is a normal thing. And so, starting off with some rituals of this religion is the Vigil service, which is where usually a group of family and friends of the individual who has unfortunately passed away would get together and they would pray. They also read some Bible verses and such things, and it also is a good way for individuals who have found out of of the unfortunate deaths to come together and console each other and give each other motivations to keep on going. And another would be the funeral mass, and sometimes there is an open casket, and it is usually held in a church, and this includes the receiving of the body, the liturgy of the word, and the Eucharistry, and the farewell of the person who has died. And then there's also the rite of committal, which is basically once the body is about to be buried, the priest would usually stand over the casket and say some last prayers and some last Bible readings and such. And there is also some followers of this religion who usually make a food for the guests who have attended the burial, and it could also serve as a way to bring families and friends together and give each other hopes during these very hard, difficult times, which we all know deaths are. And lastly, moving on to the influence of the world, I got my information from an article titled Catholics' Influence of the Culture Profound by Julie Zosmer. And the early church, they had an obsession with getting rid of, or at least trying to prevent, incest and interfamily marriages. And before the church was around, it was very common for interfamily marriages. And another way the church helped to help people was in early times, it helped to promote rather smaller nuclear families rather than like bigger tribes, which was very common. And according to Joseph Henrich, the longer people would stay to the church and near the religion in general, the higher chances they had of showing individualism and less conformity and obedience, and also more cooperation and trust in strangers. And in conclusion, thanks. My name is. And also, some people would believe that such studies made by science and that shows somehow difference among the Western cultures and other cultures, and try to make it as a way to prove Western culture supremacy. And thank you guys for listening to my presentation. My name is Rafael Escalante, and I was presenting to you guys Roman Catholicism. And thank you guys so much for your time.